We're going to start a new topic that is learning and management. And in this video, we'll cover what is learning, meaning, and definitions, component of learning process, learning theories, and organizational behavior. Learning. Learning can be defined as a permanent change in behavior due to direct and indirect experiences. It means change in behavior, attitude due to educational and training, practice, and experiences. It is completed by acquisition of knowledge and skills, which are relatively permanent. Learning can be defined as a process of acquiring new knowledge, skills, behaviors, attitude, or understanding through steady experiences or teachings. It involves the internationalization and assimilation of information, which leads to the change in cognitive behavior or perception. Learning is a fundamental aspect of human development and is essential for adaptation, problem solving, decision making, and as well as for personal growth. It occurs through various mechanisms, including observation, instructions, practice, feedback, and reflection, and can be take place consciously or unconsciously. Learning is a dynamic and long time process, or we can say lifelong process that occurs in diverse contexts such as formal education, informal settings, work environments, and social interaction. Now, if we talk about nature of learning, nature of learning means the characteristic features of learning. Learning involves change, or we can say that it may or may not guarantee improvement. The another nature is it should be permanent in nature, that is, learning is for lifelong. And lastly, a change in behavior is a result of experience, practice, and training. Learning is reflected through behavior. Factors affecting learning. Learning is based upon some key factors that decides what changes will be caused by this experience or by this experiment. The key elements or the major factors that affects learning are motivation, practice, environment, and mental growth. If we talk about motivation, the encouragement and the support one gets to complete a task to achieve a goal is known as motivation. It is very important aspect of learning as it X gives us positive energy to complete a task. Example, the coach motivated a player to win the match, or the teacher motivates his student to score good. Second is about practice. We all know that practice makes us perfect. In order to be perfectionist or at least complete a task, it's very important to practice what we have learned. For example, we can be a programmer only when we execute the code which we have written. Thirdly, environment. We can learn from our surroundings. We learn from the people around us. Or there are two types of environment, internal and external. A child, when at home, learns from the family, which is an internal environment, and when sent to school, it is an external environment. Fourth is mental group. It describes our thinking by the group of people we choose to hang out with. In simple words, we make a group of people with whom we feel connected. It can be for social cause where people with same mentality work in the same direction. Example, a group of writers, travelers, etc. Next is about components of learning process. The learning process is multifaceted and involves several interconnected components that contributes to the acquisition and assimilation of new knowledge, skills, or behavior. These components work together to facilitate effective learning. There are first one is input on information. This component represents the raw material of learning, includes facts, concepts, principles, and experiences. It can come from various sources such as textbooks, lectures, instructions, multimedia, real world interactions, and personal observation. Attention is the second point, that is, attention is the cognitive process of selectively focusing on a specific aspect of the input. It filters out irrelevant information and directs cognitive resources towards relevant stimuli. Attention is crucial for encoding information into memory and for effective learning to occur. Perception. Perception involves interpreting and making sense to the input received through the senses. It involves organizing sensory information into meaningful patterns and structures, which serves as foundation for understanding and learning. The next one is encoding. Encoding is a process of transferring sensory inputs into a format that can be stored and processed by the brain. And it involves converting information into neutral codes and mental representation that can be stored in memory. Next is about memory. Memory is the ability to retain and retrieve information over time. It consists multiple stages including sensory memories, short-term memories and long-term memories. Encoding, storage and retrieval are key processes involved a memory formation and consolidation. In the next slide, we'll discuss about processing in cognitive process. Cognitive process refers to the mental activity Involved in learning means such as perception, attention, memory, reasoning, problem solving, and decision making. These processes facilitate to organize integration and manipulation of information, leading to deeper understanding and learning. Sixth is about Seventh is about motivation. Motivation refers to the internal and external factors that drive behavior and influence the direction, intensity, and persistence of learning efforts. It can be intrinsic or extrinsic. That and plays a crucial role, or can say plays a critical role in sustaining engagement or and efforts in learning process. Next comes here feedback. Feedback provides information about accuracy, effectiveness, and progress of learning efforts. It helps learners identify errors and misconceptions or gaps in understanding and guide them towards making correction and improvement. Whereas it helps the feedback can come from various sources, including teachers, peers, self-assessment, and problem outcomes. Ninth is about practice and repetition. Practice involves repeated enclosure and rehearsal of skills or information to strengthen learning and retention. It helps consolidate memory tracks, automate skills, and enhance proficiency through reinforcement and refinement. Reflection, or we can say metacognition. Reflection involves thinking about one's own thinking and learning process. It includes activities such as self assessment, self monitoring, and self regulation, which enables learner to evaluate their process, their progress, and set goals, identify strategies, and can make adjustment to optimize learning outcomes. Last one is about transfer. Transfer refers to the application of lead knowledge, skills, or strategies to new situation or context. It involves recognizing similarities and differences between previous learning experiences and current challenges and adapting or generalizing peer knowledge to solve problems or tasks. If in the next slide, it's about learning theories. Classical learning theory. Classical conditioning occurs when the conditioned stimulus is coupled with an unconditional stimulus. Usually, the conditioned stimulus, that is CS, is an impartial stimulus like sound or turning fork. The unconditional stimulus, US, is biologically effective like the taste of food, and the unconditional response, UR, to the unconditional stimulus is an unlearned reflexes response like salivation and sweating. After this coupling process is repeated, an individual shows a conditioned response, that is CR, to the unconditioned stimulus. When the conditioned stimulus is presented alone, the conditioned responses is mostly similar to the unconditional responses. But Unlike the unconditional responses, it must be acquired through experiences and merely impartment. Next is about operant conditioning theory. Operant conditional theory is also known as conditioning, instrumental conditioning. This theory is a learning process in which behavior is sensitive to or controlled by its outcomes. Let's take an example of a child. A child learned to open a box to get the candy inside, or learn to avoid touching a hot stove. In comparison, the classical conditioning develops a relationship between a stimulus and a behavior. The example is further can be further be elaborated as the child may learn to salivate at the sight of candy or to tremble at the sight of angry parent. In 20th century, the study of animal learning was commanded by analysis of these two sort of learning and are still at the core of behavior analysis. A fourth one is about observational learning. It is also known as social learning or model. It is a fundamental concept in organizational behavior. It is the process of acquiring new knowledge, skills, or behaviors by only observing others. In the context of organizational behavior, or observational learning plays a crucial role in shaping employees' behavior, organization culture, and overall effectiveness. These are further being based on role modeling. Employees often learn by observing their superiors, peers, or even subordinates. When they see someone successfully performing a task, handling a situation, or exhibiting desirable behaviors, they are likely to emulate those behaviors themselves. For example, a new employee might observe how seasoned employees interact with customers and adopt similar communication techniques. Second is about socialization. Observational learning is an integral part of socialization process within organization. New employees observe the behavior and norms of the other co-workers and adapt their own behavior to fit in the organization culture. They can include observing how to dress, to communicate and solve problems, and collaborate effectively within the organization. Third is about implicit knowledge transfer. Not all knowledge within the organization is explicit, taught through formal training programs. Much of it is transmitted informally through observation and imitation. Employees pick up tactics and knowledge about how things are done, unwritten rules, and informal networks by observing others in action. Next one is about innovation and creativity. Observational learning can also be fosters information, innovation and creativity within the organization. When employees observe their colleagues experimenting with new ideas, taking a calculated risk, or challenging the status of the queue. They are more likely to feel empowered and to do the same. This can lead to a cultural, or we can say, culture of innovation where new ideas are valued and encouraged. And if we talk about leadership development, leaders within organization plays a very crucial role as the model of their subordinates. Through their action, leaders can influence the behavior and performance of their team by demonstrating qualities such as integrity, decisiveness, empathy, and leaders can inspire their followers to develop similar traits. Corrective learning. Observational learning isn't always about emulating positive behavior, but employees also learn from observing mistakes and failures. When they witness the consequences of poor decision making or effective behavior, ineffective behavior, what happened, they can learn what not to do in similar situations, thus facilitating corrective learning. Next is about cross functioning learning. Observational learning isn't limited to within departments or teams. Employees can also learn from observing individuals in different roles or functions within the organization. This cross functional learning can help employees to gain broader perspective, understand the interdependency between different parts of the organization, and collaborate more effectively across teams. Now, in our next slide, there is a social learning theory. The key assumption of social learning theories are as follows. The first one is learning is not exactly behavior. Instead, it is a cognitive process that takes place in a social context. Secondly, learning can occur by observing behavior and by observing the outcomes of the behavior. Learning includes observational extraction of information from those observations and making decisions regarding the performance of a behavior. Thus, learning can occur beyond an observable change in behavior. Reinforcement plays an important role in learning, but it is not completely responsible for learning. Lastly, the learner is not a passive receiver of information. Understanding environment and behavior all mutually influence each other. If we talk about cognitive learning, cognition defines a person's ideas, thoughts, knowledge, interpretation, and understanding about himself and environment. This theory considers learning as an outcome of deliberate thinking on a problem or a situation based upon the facts and responding in an objective and more oriented manner. It perceives that the person learns the meaning of various objects and events and also learn the response depending upon the meaning assigned to the stimuli. This theory debates that the learner forms a cognitive structure in memory which stores organized information about various events that occurs. Learning and organization behavior. An individual's behavior and organization directly and indirectly affects by learning. Example, employees' skills, managers' attitude are all learned. Secondly, reduces behavior can be improved by the following listed tips: reducing absenteeism by rewarding employees for their fair attendance, improving employees decline by dealing with employees' undesirable behavior, drinking at workplace, stealing, coming late, etc. By taking appropriate actions like oral repayments, writing written warnings, and suspension. Lastly, by developing training programs more often so as to grab the trainees' attentions, provide required motivational properties, etc.